Yo, so Wuthering Waves has been out for roughly a week now, so I thought it would be a good idea to go over some different strategies that have been proven to work in this game. Obviously, any player can utilize what we'll be going over in this video, especially newer players or players that have been doing an entire full week of rerolls and are only just starting the game, or players that are on the fence and haven't even started their journey yet because they were skeptical about whether this game would be worth their time invested. So let's go ahead and go over this. So firstly, I wanted to go over the character system as a whole. This includes echoes, this includes abilities, this includes weapons, what weapons to invest into, etc., etc. The character, leveling them up, ascending them, you get the picture, yada yada yada. This is where the game lives and breathes. This is where all of our time and efforts will be invested into pretty much. The combat of the game, aka what the characters are doing, that is the bread and butter here. That is what we are going into. The meat and potatoes of this game is right here. So let's go ahead and talk about the ecosystem. As you can see here, the ecosystem, these echoes here are total ass. These are all really bad, and they're all purples. You can get gold drops in this game, and that's, in my opinion, when you want to start investing into the ecosystem. None of these echoes are the ideal echoes for this character, as you might be able to tell if you've been playing this game for a little while. That's on purpose. I wanted to show you guys this because I am able to beat like every content that I've ever run into. I'm able to clear it even with the non-ideal echoes that you see here. So don't feel pressured into investing into this ecosystem in the early stages until you get high enough rank to be able to start getting 5-star echoes, until you get those 5-star echo drops, and also not just getting those 5-star echoes, but getting the ideal echoes for your characters with the ideal stats, because the substats are like the most important things about these games. That's where a lot of your power level is going to come from. Only so much can come from your weapons, and the weapons are more limited in what we have access to. There's a lot of variety and a lot of different stats that will be coming from the ecosystem. It's the most important echoes. The ecosystem is the most important part of this game, to be perfectly honest with you. This is the biggest time sink of the entire game. This is where most players will be investing their efforts into, are these echoes. And you're not going to be able to even get 5-star, or sorry, echo drops from the characters. The gold drops won't start coming until you reach databank level 15. Then enemies in the overworld will actually start dropping 5-star echoes. That's when you're really going to flip the switch and start grinding the echoes really hard. Now, obviously, there are other ways of getting echoes from the 5-star echoes. I believe some of them can be like picked up in specific ways, but like I said, you're really going to want to focus in on getting to level 15. That's when the ecosystem is really going to start mattering. So don't ignore the ecosystem. You still want to farm out echoes. You still want to, whenever you see an echo in the overworld, you still want to go out there and defeat them and absorb as many as you can, so that you can rank up your databank level. That's really important to do. Don't ignore it, just don't invest into it, like hyper invest into it in the early stages. That's probably the best advice I could probably give you in this entire video, is to not waste your resources and your effort and time too much into the ecosystem until you're getting those 4-star drops, or those 5-star drops, those gold echoes, okay? That's the best thing I could say, is wait until you're getting the most ideal echoes, and go watch some build guides and other things like that. Do some due diligence, do some research to make sure what echoes are the best echoes for the character that you're investing into. All right, now let's move on to something you can't screw up, because you can kind of goof up these echoes a little bit. Rather than do this in the early stages, I would recommend doing something you can't screw up. For example, you see my stats are kind of mid here because the echoes I just had equipped were really ass. But as you can see here, leveling up your character, you can't screw that up. Ascending your character, you can't screw that up, right? The only thing you can goof up when leveling or ascending your characters is, you see here, I'm time gated, not time gated, but I'm like paywalled, I guess you could say, not literally. I need to reach soul level phase 4 in order to be able to ascend Gion here. But you can see I'm still a little bit short on some of the material I would need to ascend him. Rather than wait until soul level 3 phase 4 has been achieved, I will be able to level him up at that point, but only after I ascend him. So it's best to pre-farm some of this stuff out. And so what stuff might you need? Well, you can see it right here. And if you just click on it, you can get taken right here to the detect system, and you can track this particular enemy that you would need to farm in order to get those materials. As you can see, you get a ton of other stuff too, including level up material for your union rank. So there's a lot of great stuff that can drop from these enemies, and it's a great way, it's a great use of your wave plate consumption, because you know that you're going to have to do this stuff eventually. So you see the wave plate consumption right here. Your wave plate, by the way, is essentially like resin or like stamina. Depending on what gacha games you've played in the past, it's essentially your stamina or your resin, etc., etc. It's called wave plates in this game. Now, obviously, I suggest you pick up the resonance beacons nearby these areas you need to farm. For example, if I didn't have access to this area yet, and if this imaginary red line wasn't here and you could access this other area that's all grayed out, if you could go out here, you would just need to, you know, explore to find it, and you head in that direction. If this was, let's say, the boss right here, you just head out in that direction, you get the resonance beacon nearby, and you can access that boss. That's only obviously if you didn't already have access to the boss. So just some advice there for the character ascensions and whatnot. Obviously, these are much easier to acquire. You can pick these up in the overworld, but you can also just buy them from the shop. There's a shop right here that you can pick up certain materials for, and it only costs you credits in order to be able to do that. Now, I wouldn't go too hard wasting your credits or anything like that, but this is definitely one of those things that is worth your credits, because it can definitely be a time sink farming these out if you just, you could just spend the credits to be able to get it. It's not like real life money. Now, right here is another material you'd need to farm out as well. You can go, like, obviously farm these out. This enemy right here, you can use the detect system, and it will take you all around the map. And if you keep the detect system on, you go defeat the mobs right here. Once you defeat them, it'll keep moving along. This entire area right here, this little lake right here, these dudes are all over it. Once you defeat these mobs here, you'll notice that the detection system will start moving along this area, and it'll allow you to keep farming these dudes out. Now, don't forget, of course, there is also a synthesis. Wow, I really just said that. You can use the synthesis system, which is super duper amazing, because you can see here, this is a blue rank material, but imagine it was a purple rank material that I didn't have. You could go use the synthesis system, and you can pump up those blues all together and make the purple item that you need. Some people could easily screw this up. You might have 0 of a purple item in your inventory, but you might not realize that you have a ton of the blue material. And you can just go use the synthesizer system, because you might not realize that even though it says 0 of the purple item in your inventory, you can just pump it up with the blue and get the purple item. Let's go ahead and look at an example of this here. Right now, I have, I believe it's maybe Baija or something like that, because I'm not worried about leveling up her too much. Oh, no. Let's go to the weapon right here, I believe. Yeah, so I don't have any of these purples, but I have a ton of the blue material. So I could just go to the synthesizer and convert my blues into purples, and I can level up Gion's weapon. I'm not worried about leveling up Gion's weapon once I'm able to do so, because I know for a fact I've already pre-farmed it plenty, and I'll be able to fully level that thing up once I get to the next ascension rank. So that's my advice for the weapons for ascending them. But as far as, let's give you a little bit more advice that is not necessarily super duper obvious. Obviously, this is Gion's best weapon, so I know for a fact I want to level this weapon up as much as possible, as often as possible. It's also Kelcharo's best weapon as well. And the cool thing about that is that I can literally switch Gion's weapon over to Kelcharo whenever I want, and whenever I'm using Kelcharo, rather than level up 2 different broadswords, I only actually have to have this broadsword leveled, and I can just switch it over whenever I feel like, including in the late game content of the tower. The tower where we're gonna need, by the way, just so you guys are aware of this, the tower, like late game content, requires us to have, every team has 3 characters, but in the tower, you need 3 teams. That's 3 teams of 3. That's 9 characters. that you would need properly leveled up to clear that content. Obviously, that's some late game content. In the early stages, you're not going to necessarily have to worry about that too hard. However, it is something you want to start planning ahead for to some degree. Now, I brought that up so that you guys are aware of like, well, Pancake, I have Gion fully leveled or something like that. What do I do now? Well, obviously, if you need 9 characters for that content, you can start leveling up some of these other characters as well, at least to some degree, so that they're prepared and ready to go. And you want to definitely make sure you're investing into some good characters, but 9 characters is a lot. So obviously, you know, Gion, Genshin, Baizha, Kalcharo, Havoc Rover. These are all characters that are very, very strong, and so investing into all of these and building these all up over time is not a bad choice and a bad investment of your time. Example, if you haven't quite gotten to a good point with the relic system yet, rather than deep dive into the relic system, until you get to that point, it wouldn't be a bad choice to start continuing with your other characters that you might not be using quite yet. You can start burning some of your resin, aka your wave plates, on some of these other characters' ascension materials and level up materials and stuff like that. That is a very good use of your wave plates, of your resin, or these other character ascension materials, for example. Now let's go ahead and give you one more piece of advice with the weapon system as well. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that. So in the late game content, apparently in between phases, you can switch your weapons. So with your Gion team, you can literally clear that particular phase, and then when you're no longer allowed to use Gion anymore because he cleared that phase, and you move to the next phase, let's say that's your Kalcharo team, you can just switch Gion's weapon off onto your Kalcharo. You won't be able to use Gion anymore, but you could take his weapon off of him and put him on Kalcharo. This is something that I think players might end up missing out on and thinking that they need to have multiple weapons, like a ton of weapon assortments ready to go. But in some cases, you're able to just use that one weapon. There obviously is a little bit of exceptions to this sometimes, like with Havoc Rover, for example. Rover uses a sword, a regular sword. Yang Yang uses a regular sword. If you just so happen to have both of them on the same team, you are obviously going to need to have 2 sword weapons leveled up. You can't, you know, in the middle of combat switch the weapon like that. That's not really how it works. So there are going to be some exceptions in situations where you are going to want to have multiple weapons leveled up. And in this situation here, with this 4-star weapon, this 4-star sword that you see here, this is actually a pretty solid sword. So I'm definitely going to be leveling up this weapon, because even if I get a 5-star that's better than it down the line, I can just put this on my sub DPS character instead of my main DPS character, because they're obviously going to need something too. So just keep that in mind. The last piece of advice I wanted to give you guys is just an example here. You see that Genshin has a level 34 out of 40 weapon, but as you can see here, I'm able to actually take weapons to level 50 if I ascend them. But I'm like, maybe let's just say I'm not 100% sure about Genshin's weapon. Maybe I might use my 5-star Selector weapon on her, for example, for whatever reason. So you may want to consider leveling up some weapons, but not fully if you're not sure about them yet, rather than invest all of these different ascension materials, rather than start blowing up your wave plates and your resin on a weapon you may not even use down the line. So just a little piece of advice there. If you're not sure about something, don't fully invest into it right off of the bat. Consider, you know what I mean, leveling up a little bit, because this is just potentially a stepping stone until you get a better weapon. Now let's go ahead and talk about the abilities real quick. I'll use Gion as an example because he's actually the dude I've been investing into as far as these skills and abilities go. You can obviously invest into the ascension materials for these as well, or the upgrade materials for these as well. And you can pre-farm a whole bunch of this stuff too. As you can see here, we have this material here, we have this material here. But let's go ahead and take a look at this particular domain where this stuff comes from. It's from the Foundry challenges. You can use your resin, aka wave plates, on this as well. And as you can see, a bunch of material drops from this. It's not just the material that you were originally looking for the weapons or whatever. This, for example, is something that can be used on the weapons and the skills. Here's something that can be used in weapons and skills as well. This material is used in weapons and skills. So that you see a pattern here. There's a bunch of value that comes out of farming this stuff and pre-farming this stuff, so it's a great use of your wave plates. If you're unsure, like if your dailies are about to run out and you know you have some resin or whatever, you're about to cap on your resin and you're not sure, like, I'm not sure I want to use it on, but I don't want it to cap. You could easily just pre-farm something like this. That way you also get union level experience as well while you are farming up some of this important material that you will need for your characters. So let's go ahead and just point out here that obviously some of these abilities might have more priority than others. For example, you're going to be using your skill a lot, so leveling your skill is usually a good choice, but to be honest with you, it will depend character to character what is likely going to be the more valuable thing for you to use. Example, the forte, this right here, or so the skill is obviously something that every character is going to have. Your basic attack might not necessarily be the most important thing on your character. It just depends, like I said, on what characters you might want to invest into. If you don't use your intro skills, you should be using your intro skills very regularly, but some of these abilities will be used more often than others, and it might be more valuable for you to invest into that first rather than something else. Your Resonance Liberation is one of your most powerful abilities, so typically I would say the Resonance Liberation is going to be something you probably want to invest into, as well as maybe your skill, because it's used very often. But obviously, some of you might want to invest into your Forte Circuit, depending on what characters you are using. Some of these will have more value than others, but as you can see, you can only level them up evenly, like 3 out of 10. That's because of my Resonator rank. So this is also something that you're a little bit held back on until you properly level up your ranks. As you rank up, and again, don't forget to pre-farm them as well. Now, obviously, we could be here all day talking about different tips and strategies for this game. There is a lot going on here, so we'll keep it to this for now so it's more digestible for you. So stay tuned in the future when we go over more Wuthering Waves content, whether you're a beginner, mid, or top-level player. Anyways, if this was helpful or informative in any way, shape, or form, consider leaving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.